Welcome to Gmail and Google Calendar. Organize your life. Honestly, these can be, just kind of some tedious types of explorations, but there are so many hidden gems in each of the apps that you are likely to discover something that you will be able to streamline your communication and your organizational life with. So thanks for joining us. The short link to the slides is bit.ly/mailcaliu14. That's all lowercase. My name is Lynn Hilt, and I'm from the Office of Professional Development and Curriculum at BCIU. Thanks for joining us. I'm a program admin, and we've been busy creating sessions for the county teachers, and we're so thankful that you spend your days with us. My email is lynnhill@berksiu.org if you have any follow-up questions or needs based on today's session, and we will post this recording and on demand. So the first app we're going to look at is Gmail. And I know that some of you might be using Gmail as your school email platform, and some of you might not, but you may have your own personal Google account, and you might use Gmail as your personal email. So you'll be able to find something applicable here either way. We're going to take a look at the settings for Gmail. Out of all the apps, Gmail settings are among the most complex. There's a lot of specific preferences that you can set up, and there's a pretty comprehensive settings menu that we'll look through today. Not all of it, but the most important parts. We'll talk about inboxes, and we'll look at the different ways that you can organize your inbox, and maybe you didn't even know that was a possibility. And we'll look at menu navigation, and then we'll talk about how to compose and interact with messages, and all about labels and organization. Now, one thing I like to talk about at the very beginning is this whole idea, especially if you've been using another type of email, let's just say Outlook, in your life. Outlook and Gmail are very different platforms. They're organized very differently. And that's one reason why if a school, for example, switches from Outlook to Gmail, people often lose their bearings kind of easily. But when you're talking about Gmail, it's actually one giant mailbox. And that thought is important because when you start to talk about things like labels and archive, you'll see why that matters. So in your inbox and in your left-hand side, your navigation, we're going to go through and make sure we understand how to get from place to place in Gmail. And if you've been using Gmail for a number of years, you know that last year, I lose track of time, but at least last year or the year before, Gmail got a facelift. So when you logged in, it looks a lot different now than it used to. With some cleaner features. So we're going to look at that. We're going to look at the settings and go through each space. So in my school account, I don't have access to Gmail. And you might see that as well in your school domain. Sometimes tech directors or G Suite management teams turn off Gmail if it's not part of their plan, their G Suite for Education plan. Although it is part of it, sometimes they just opt to turn it off or on for staff or students. So this is, your general inbox look. Before you do any customization, you have these three categories that Gmail attempts to categorize your email into: a primary mailbox, any kind of social media updates. This is the account that I have associated with a Google Plus community. So that's what all of this is. Don't be ashamed of me. I don't actually use this inbox very often, so this is very unclear or very messy. And then this is a promotions tab. So Gmail is attempting to say, you know what, this is kind of selling her either an item or something that they're offering. So they categorize that in promotions. So that's the default. And I'll show you how to change that. Then on the left-hand side, you have all of your main categories of the mailbox, your inbox, which is that space where new mail comes into. What you look at when you get to Gmail is the inbox. You have your starred items. If you put a little star next to any email, that's what that means. It will flag it and then it will show up in your starred menu. You have snooze mail. Snooze mail is something new where if you got an email coming in and you weren't ready to read that yet and you wanted it to appear at a later time, you can actually snooze it. Like, because this is a pretty important email updating me about Google Meet. So I can click snooze and I can have it reappear as a new email later in the day or tomorrow, or I can pick an exact day and time. So that's really useful for people who have diligently created schedules of checking their email at certain days, certain times. So that's what snooze button's all about. There are a lot of menus here, the chats, if you had any chats, drafts, all that kind of stuff. And what you see here are the colors. These are my labels that I've set up thus far. And I'm calling them labels and I'm not calling them folders, and I'm doing that for a reason. We'll talk about that too. Now underneath here, there's all sorts of things. Important, scheduled mail, because you can now schedule emails to go out at a specific day and time. All mail is everything in your giant mailbox, including all things that you've sent to the archive, okay? So when you archive a message, it will appear, this is taking forever because I for sure archive a lot of stuff. All mail includes all archived stuff as well. Spam is catching your spam coming in. Trash is actually deleted email messages. So there's a difference, and we'll talk about that too. Like here, I am not really interested working for Kaizena. When we look at the options along the top, archive is first. And if you archive a message, it is sent out of your inbox. It is removed from the inbox view, but it is not deleted. So I would still be able to locate it in all mail. The trash can is actually delete, and the trash can will send your email to the trash, and in about 30 days it will get purged. So I have those differences mapped out here for you on this slide, where I kind of do a little map of all the options. All right, so let's talk about what you can do with your messages in Gmail. You can archive them, and the difference between archive and delete is that an archived message is actually not deleted. It is simply removed from your inbox, but you can still find that archived message in all mail. Deleted messages are sent to the trash, and when you actually delete a message, those messages will hang out in your trash for about 30 days, and then they get automatically purged. So if you want to remove something from your email view, from your inbox view, but you don't want to delete it forever, then that's where I would use the archive session. So again, here's archive. Oops. Here's archive that will send it to out of my inbox, and this is your inbox view. So it'll take it away from that, but it won't delete it for good. I can still get that. So now it's gone from inbox. I can still get it in my all mail. So it'll still be here wherever that came in. So here are my labels, and labels are your way of organizing. And it's a little bit of a difference in the idea of folders versus labels, okay? Folders don't exist in Gmail. And you're not gonna like that I say that, because in the old Gmail, they had like a little folder icon, and you even see a little folder icon when you are asked if you want to move an email, but you're technically not foldering things. And the difference is in Outlook, for example, if you put an email in a folder, let's say you have a folder for HR, and you put an email from HR in that folder, you cannot put that email in another folder in Outlook. It's just like physical paper. If you take a physical paper and you put it inside a folder, You cannot also take that same physical paper and put it in a different folder across the room. It can't happen. But with labels, you can affix as many labels as you want to an email. Just like with a physical piece of paper, you can take a sheet of sticky labels and you can put 20 labels on that paper, just stick them on. So that's the difference. Labels are your solution for organization, but they are not foldered, and you can have multiple labels on an email message. Labels look like this. In the actual inbox, you'll see a little, whatever color you chose for your label, a little title of the label flagged, and then it'll appear right there for you. These are my labels in my inbox on the menu on the left-hand side. These are the labels that are found in the settings. Some of them, these are all by default. System labels are things like snooze. These are all ways of categorizing or filtering emails. They're not folders. So you can choose in the settings to show or hide any of these preset labels so that you can keep your left-hand navigation exactly the way you want it. So right now I have pretty much every system label showing up for me. And maybe I really don't need all of those, but at the bottom of this list, this is one way that I can start managing my labels. I can go to manage labels, which will take me into settings, or if I quickly want to create a new label, I can do that. So I don't know what has been coming in this mailbox lately, but I'll just call it instructional tech. And here is where you can also put labels under labels. You can nest them. So I'll just do that for now. So I'll click create. So now I have a new label, instructional tech, and there's triple dots here. So I can pick my color right here. See, I don't have a dark blue yet. And now when I'm in a message, I can, and look at this. You notice the label called inbox. These are automatically labeled as inbox because they're in my inbox. And I'm actually in all mail right now. So let me go back out to inbox, because if you're in the inbox, you don't actually see that label. So let me click here and let me add a label to that label. I'll call it, right now it's under updates. I don't really need it there. I'll just call it instructional tech. And now I have my label. Now, when I go to the instructional tech label, here's that email that I added. So you'll notice that email is in two places. It's still listed in my inbox, and it's also located here in this label view, okay? If I don't want it to appear in my inbox, that's when I use this move option. Okay, I'm going to move it, and it's already instructional tech, so it leaves my main inbox. I don't have to visually look at it, but I don't want to delete it. I might need it later. And now here it is, safe and sound in the label area. Okay, so I work really hard not to say the word folder because it's not a folder. And even though this looks like a picture of a folder with an arrow, it's the move command. So you're moving it out of your inbox, you're moving it to a different category in your all mailbox. So that's what I tried to explain here, that when you move emails out of inbox, you're not putting them in a folder, you're just removing them from that inbox view and you're placing them somewhere safe in the label sections. Okay. Gmail, and I had meant to do like 30 minutes Gmail and 30 minutes calendar. So I'll try to stick to that. The Gmail is honestly very powerful when you learn the search. And I know people who switch from Outlook have issues with not being able to sort columns and search for or like look for things a certain way that they did in Outlook. But because Gmail is a Google service, you know that the search features have to be really powerful within it. So there is a search mail dialog at the very top, And when you use that, you can search by all of these different categories. You can search by subject. You can search for email messages that have specific words or who they're from or who they're to. You can search by what day you think they came or what week you think, or if they have an attachment or if they don't. And that is also something that can be recreated with search operators. And search operators are quite fun. Let me go to a different email so you can see what that looks like for one that I actually have. So here's another email inbox. And what you're going to notice right away is that this email actually looks way different than my other one. I don't have a long list of email. I have chunks of email, and I'm going to show you how to do that. But here under search mail, I can search from, and then I can search an email address. And now this has totally filtered my view to show me only email that my husband sent me. So you can do that with this information here in this search field. So let me pop to this. Search mail, you can type right up there, or you can use the arrow. And here's all of your search options. I don't really know anybody's email. This is all from companies. So let's say search. And now it has filtered that out. You see, I only see the G Suite team. So if you're looking for specific email, then that would be a good way to start learning those search operators, or use the drop down arrow and really get specific here. That's how that was designed to function for you. Okay. So we're popping an email. Let me see what else I want to show you. I want to show you the settings. So let's go into my settings, which are in the top right. You should recognize the settings icon as the little gear wheel. And the first thing you can do is you can set up your inbox to look differently. So I'm going to click Configure Inbox, and here are my options. I can have those tabs or not. If you don't like the tabs, you can get rid of them. You have to have a primary inbox. But if you don't like the social tab or you don't like the promotions, you can get rid of that. You can also add updates. You can also add forums. If you subscribe to a lot of forums, you can add those things. So that's one way that you can set up your inbox. You can also go into your settings, and you can set up what's called a priority inbox. So we're going to go through the settings here in a little rapid pace, but we're going to look at general in a second. But let's go over to inbox. My inbox type in this account is the default. This is just what you see when a new Gmail account is created. But you have a couple of options. You can decide to show all important mail first. So you're saying, well, Lynn, what is important mail? Gmail works behind the scenes to try to determine what mail is important to you based on your interactions with the mail. So if you always open something from a recipient, or you always or from a sender, or you always reply to someone, it is going to start to learn that behavior, and it's going to consider that email important. You can also mark email as important. So if you want to mark your principal's email as important, you can do that. Maybe you want to see all the unread email first. Maybe you want to see all the starred email first. Or maybe you want to do priority inbox, which is what I do in my personal Gmail account. With priority inbox, you get 4 sections, and you get to decide what sections are shown in the inbox view. So I'll do important and unread, then all my starred messages, then I'll pick one of my labels. We'll do Chrome extensions, and then everything else is what's shown. And when you're in your settings, there's a Save Changes button at the bottom. So I'm going to do Save Changes. And now look at how my inbox has changed. Now, and it's subtle, but now I have 4 sections. important and unread, starred messages, anything about Chrome extensions, and then everything else. Okay. Now, this helps me stay organized and it's my personal preference. Maybe you don't like that. But if you have a very important label, like if you have a label for parent emails, you can make sure that anything flagged as a parent email shows up in this space. Now, back to settings. You have all of these general settings here that help you set your preferences for mail. So of course, your default reply should be reply and not reply all. I like to have hover actions, which is where in the inbox, let me save this. In the inbox, when you hover to the right at the end of a message, you get 4 quick little buttons. So you actually don't have to go into the email to take these actions. You can just say archive, delete, and you can do everything right from that quick space. So I love the hover options. You have send and archive and reply, all of this stuff, default text, grammar and spelling. Do you want those suggestions on? Autocorrect. Smart Compose is amazing. If you have not used it yet, Smart Compose is Google AI reading your email, not saving it, just analyzing it, and saying, hey, could you please read, let me just see here, this isn't really doing my stuff. It doesn't in my other account. The email, oh, there we go. So could you please read the email below? Now, if you hit tab, it's going to just, oops, I did not hit tab. It's going to insert the word. If you would get me your feedback by tomorrow, so it's suggesting tomorrow, that would be great. So I literally just typed some words and it started to smartly compose my responses. So yes, sign me up for that because I do a lot of email writing. That's Smart Compose. Conversation view. Conversation view is very important if you are dealing with a lot of email. Conversation view will chunk your emails that are long into groups. So here's an email from Rich Kiker with a ton of different people in it. Instead of seeing 5 different lists of emails, you see a number 5 behind it. I don't see any more of those here. Here's just 2. So it will turn on conversation view. Smart reply, mail notifications. Do you want to get desktop notifications or not? Now, you can also customize how many stars you use or the types of stars, which is so great. These are all the stars I have in use. Maybe you want to use the red exclamation point to notify you visually if something's really important. Let me show you what that looks like. If you press the star once, it turns yellow, but if you keep pressing it, it will change through all your stars. So now I'll consider this very important and I'll be able to see that and I'll be flagged through that. So I love my multiple stars, and I'm telling you, people get really into this in order to stay organized. Here's your profile photo that will appear in these spaces. Here's where you add your signature, and you can now add multiple signatures, and you can choose which signature you want to have in your email messages. So signatures happen under settings, general. And then your vacation responder. If you are going to be out of office and you want to automatically send an email, that happens down here as well. And then don't forget to save any changes that you make. Now, under labels in your settings, this is where you can go through and you can show and hide, and you'll notice they disappear as I start to do this. You can show and hide any, well, I'm not going to do that. I don't use this email. I could essentially hide everything. Show and hide anything you want on the menu, and it'll disappear right away. And it says, note, if you remove a label, it is not going to erase the messages that are associated with that label. This is also where you can create new labels. And They'll pop up on the side. And don't forget, let me move over, your triple dots. You can assign a color that way to stay organized. There are more settings here I don't have time to kind of go through, but you can add other mail accounts to your inbox. You can block addresses, filter addresses. Filtering is like Google Email 102, but for example, if I would like to filter everything from the G Suite team, a filter is like a rule. So when I go to the triple dots here, and you're going to find more options for your messages when you're actually inside a message, you have print, you have full size window. Here's more. I can say filter messages like this. This is also the translate spot. If you receive an email from a parent in a language that is not your first language, you can go ahead and you can translate it to English. I'll pretend that I speak something else, so I'll translate it, and it will translate the messages for you. You can also take advantage of that when you're sending email messages as well. So let me go back here. Just go back to English. Okay, here, filter messages like this. What you're really doing is you're looking for all messages from that account, and you're going to create a filter or a rule for that. So every time I get that email, what do I want to happen? I want to apply a label, G Suite, Google for Education, and you can do so all these things if you want. Sometimes if you continue getting email from a company and you don't want to, you can create a filter, check delete whenever it comes in, and it'll automatically trash it for you. And you can also go back and apply it to all matching conversations that are already in your inbox. So create filter. So now what this has done, it has labeled this message. And when I go here, it has essentially put all of those things that I just created the rule for into this space, which is, so now you can see all the green labels popped up that weren't there before. All right. So that should kind of help you get a little bit more oriented to Gmail. There are some new features of Gmail that you might want to look at. Like now you can launch a Google Meet meeting directly from Gmail or join a meeting. And you can also schedule your messages to send on a specific day and time. So those are some new updates. In the classroom, your domain administrators have likely set up rules for your students. They're probably able to email you or their peers, but maybe they're not allowed to email outside addresses. So that all depends on how your domain is set up. But it is nice to have student email enabled so that they can receive notifications from Google Classroom, and so that they can get things like their quiz results if they take a Google Forms quiz or something like that. So it's a nice feature to have in addition to just having a functional email address. I listed a bunch of other Gmail resources for you if you're really looking to dive in and become a Gmail wizard. Those things will help. There's also a nice cheat sheet that Google has created, and it's the most up-to-date version. So I know a lot of educators create things, but this is like exactly how it looks right now. So that is helpful for you there. All right, so let's switch to calendar at this time. Calendar also received an update a couple of years ago. It looks a lot cleaner now. There's a lot more functionality. I actually did not use Google Calendar until that update went through. I refused because it didn't do some of the things that I wanted it to do. But here are some things that I would recommend if you're getting to know Calendar really well. One is to create a practice calendar in your account, and we're going to look at how calendars shake out in your account. But I would create a separate calendar to do some practice events and things that aren't associated with your main account. And we're going to look at the settings. We're going to look at making calendars public or sharing them. And for Google for Education accounts, we're going to look at this cool feature called appointment slots, which is only available in Google for Education. And we'll also look at tasks and reminders. So in Google Calendar, if you launch up your calendar right now, so you can look at what yours looks like compared to what my sample shows, you, on the left-hand side, you have a menu, and at the top are all of your calendars. Actually, it's more toward the bottom of the screen. And under that, you have other calendars. So what's great about Google Calendar is you can create as many calendars as you want under your account, but that first one that's listed there, that is your default calendar. It is usually named after your name or your Google account username. And my recommendation is don't add things to that main calendar that you wish to share publicly. Do not turn your Lynn Hilt calendar into your fourth grade classroom calendar, because what happens is this sometimes gets associated with automatic reminders or event populations, and all of a sudden you might have a doctor's appointment event pop up on there that you didn't mean to. And now if you've shared that main calendar publicly with your class parents, then they're going to see that too. So my recommendation is to create separate sub calendars for specific things that you want to share. So for my kids, I have a Hilt Children Activities calendar that I specifically share with my husband, and then he can see back when we had activities like soccer and t-ball, all of that kind of stuff was on there. This was a calendar I made for one of the graduate courses I taught, so I would put a lot of their events on there and due dates and things. And then down here, these are not calendars that I am the owner of. I did not create these calendars, but I did either subscribe to them or I joined a Google Classroom. Like, for example, the art teacher at my daughter's school has a Google Classroom and I joined it. So now my Google Classroom associated calendars show up here. Or if another organization like the school district has made a shareable Google Calendar, I can add that to my view and I can see all of their events at the same time I see all of my events. And if you're worried about it getting too cluttered, at any time you can uncheck these boxes and it will only show you what you want to see. So that's how those break down. When you're creating new events and you click inside a day of the month, for example, you have a lot of options depending on the preferences that you've chosen. You can create events, you can create out of office notices, reminders and tasks, and an EDU can create appointment slots. So what you see here depends on how your preferences are set up and what your Google admin allows. But when you're creating a main event, these are all the preferences that you can add to it. The title of the event, the day, the time, all of the specifics about the event. Like you can put an actual map-based location there. We know that now people are adding Google Meet videos to the event. Notifications, if you want to send reminders to people or if you want to get a reminder about an event. And then here's a really important space. It's which calendar does this event belong to? So if you are sharing with a public calendar that parents have access to, make sure you pick that specific calendar. It will default to your calendar, your account. So make sure you pick the right calendar. This is your visibility status if other people have access to your calendar and your schedule. And then you can add event details. You can include links. You can include bulleted lists and attachments. So this is very feature rich. You can add pretty much everything, for example, a meeting attendee would need if they were coming to your meeting. This is where you invite people. So you can invite them via email address. You can allow them to invite other people or not and see the guest list or not. So these are all permissions in the big space of adding an event. So let's just look at that for a minute. Here is my work / core connections calendar here. So core connections, this is how we build all of the live events that we host on the Google site. So what you see when you visit our Core Connections Google site on the live events page is that calendar embedded. So that's another reason why I love Google Calendar, is this idea that you can embed it so easily in a Google site. And when we were building this, all we did was we went to our page for live events, which is here. And we went down to the options for insert in Google Sites, and here's the calendar. And all I had to do is I click on calendar and I find the one that I want to share with you, Core Connections, and I put it in there. So that's a really easy way to share a live calendar with parents or with the public. Now, at any time, I can uncheck that if I'm looking specifically for something else, and I don't really use this calendar for much else. I can click that and everything will disappear from view. Other calendars that I subscribe to in this space, the PAIU STEM POC calendar, even if I have this checked, or even if I start checking all of my Google Classroom things, all right, this is not going to impact what you see in the published calendar view, because the only thing I published here was the Core Connections virtual learning calendar. So that is another reason why it's so important to create separate calendars for separate things, okay? When we were running the Epic Resource Library, we used the Google Calendar to show you which items were checked out and which ones were available in a more calendarish way, okay? You can also see under my calendars, these are all of my Google Classrooms, and they automatically get a calendar associated with them, and we'll talk about that. So to create a new event, sometimes I do it the quick way and sometimes I do it the long way. But if you just click once, if you type the time, 9 a.m. Lynn's demo session, here are all my options. I'm typically creating events, and here's that very important thing where you have to pick which calendar you're showing that to. Okay, you can also add a whole bunch of stuff here, the location, the conferencing, without even going into that master space. But this is where I typically list the session description, and I'd put the join link in here like I do for our Core Connections. But don't forget, you have to pick the correct calendar. Now here, when I click save, it pops up. Anything that is super dark, that's filled in, that represents an all-day event. So since I did the quick entry and I typed the time first, 9 a.m., that's how it was entered at 9 a.m. So I'm going to delete that so nobody gets confused. The other two things I have checked are reminders and tasks. Reminders and tasks. And let me talk to you about those a little bit. Reminders and tasks are integrated with Google Calendar, and reminders appear on your calendar. They can be set to repeat, but they can't contain a whole lot of list details or anything like that. So for example, if you have to fill out a form every Friday about, how virtual learning is going, you might set a reminder on your calendar every Friday for you to do that. Tasks are more feature rich, and Google actually spent the last year or so really building up Google Tasks as a platform. It's available on that sidebar, which we'll take a look at, of Gmail. It shows up in Calendar. There are mobile apps you can use to take advantage of Google Tasks, and it's also available in Google Docs on the sidebar. You can also, if you prefer to see them in a web-based mode, you could add this add-on called Tasks Board. It's actually really cool. I just discovered it this week. But here, let me go to my calendar. And on the right-hand side, I can pull up all of my Google Keep notes. So that's a good integration. And if you haven't done Google Keep yet, Danny is doing a session on it. So you'll learn about that. And then here are my tasks. So one of my tasks was to complete HR paperwork. I can mark it complete, and I did that. And so now that was crossed off of my calendar. So yay, I finished all my tasks. So tasks live right there. Let me go to the tasks thing that I just added the other day. Where does it even show up? Tasks bar. Uh-oh. I just added it. Now I forget how I did that. Let me do this. Tasks. So here's my tasks on this side. Okay, so I actually added a lot more here just as an example. What in the world? Let me, taskbarapp.com, I think it was called. Oh yeah, tasksport.app. I did it on this account. See if it takes me. So this is your desktop app for tasks. So you just sign in with your Google account. And here we go. So now this will list your tasks not only on the sidebar of another app, I should have bookmarked that, but it will put them all here, okay? Now here, I created a task from an email. And when you're inside your email inbox, if I see something that needs my attention, learning more about Quill, that is now one of the quick buttons from Gmail. Add to tasks. And now I have a new task associated with that. I can edit and I can add more details. Which task list do I want it to go to? Do I want a date and time where I need to do that? Do I want to set a repeat so I take care of that task over and over? Are there subtasks I have to do? And such. So tasks is much more suited for project organization, tracking, development. There's a lot going on here, and it's just a matter of getting in the flow of using it. I've never gotten in the flow of using any digital task organizer. So tasks is not one that I rely on a lot, but there really should be one that I should find. But it's a great feature. If you're looking for a to-do list creator, tasks is a good one to check out. So appointment slots. When you are hosting appointments for people, whether it's your students signing up for one-on-one office time with you, or if you're the principal and you're having teachers sign up for meeting times, or if you are hosting parent meetings, appointment slots is really fun. It has, here's the to-dos, but I'll show you how to do it from my trainer account. So we'll go here. We're going to click, today's the 13th, so I'm going to set up appointment slots for Tuesday the 19th. I'm going to click inside and I'm going to choose appointment slots. Now here our meetings are going to be about virtual learning feedback meetings. And I'm going to set up the time of, we're going to start the meetings at 9 a.m. and we're going to end the meetings at, well, not on the 20th. We're going to end the meetings at 12 p.m. So we're going to do 3 hours of meetings. And I want the slots with a duration, I want each one to be 30 minutes long. So we're doing a 3-hour chunk. We're doing 30-minute meetings. And the calendar I want to associate that is, I don't know. We'll just do my regular one because I don't actually use this account. So you can go into more options and you can add, details and all the things you need. But for now, the most important thing is how long the slots are going to last, and then how many minutes each meeting is going to last. So I'm going to click save. And you notice they look a little bit different on your calendar than other things. So I'm going to click here. And I'm going to click go to appointment page for this calendar, because when you set up appointment slots, it designs a special calendar for you that you then share with others who are signing up. So my time is blocked out. Here are the slots. Let me just go, and this should work on any account, so even if I go to an incognito window, the person does need to have, so let me not do that then. The person does need to have a way to sign in so you know that it is whose account is signing up. So I'm going to go virtual learning feedback meetings, and I'm going to click on the slot that I prefer, which is the 10 to 10:30. The organizer would typically put where that happens and what the description is, but I'm going to sign up here and I'm going to click can't wait to see you at the meeting. So they can add notes. So I'm going to click save. And now that slot has been booked and it has been removed from the appointment view. And for my new account, it says you can view or edit it in Google Calendar. So this is the other Google Calendar, and it has been added to my calendar. All right. And here's all the stuff that was included with that. So this is even a different calendar. I have so many calendars. So again, that is awesome. And now this was the one, and I can see from my calendar as the host that Lynn Marie Hill signed up for 10 o'clock. And that's going to start populating for me as people sign up for my appointments. So it's click here, appointment slots, set your range, how long you want the appointments to last from start to finish, and then how long you want each appointment itself to last. Click save, click on the item, go to appointment page and share that link. And it's not showing you because I have to go to the next week. Share that link with people so they can sign up, and then people will see when things are taken. Totally underused, but definitely awesome in the realm of G Suite. Take advantage of that if you're trying to set up some things for your families or for your parents, okay? There are also add-ons available for Google Calendar, just like there are for Gmail. I didn't show you any of those, but if you are going to be a power user of Gmail and Google Calendar, you might want to check those out. I just added one to my account for Zoom, and I'm quite impressed with how it's working. So here's my Zoom for G Suite. It links my Zoom account with this calendar so that if I open up like today, I could have gone here and I could have launched this meeting right from Google Calendar instead of going through the Zoom platform. So I could have clicked start here at 3 o'clock when I do music teachers. I could have clicked start there. So that's an add-on. When you click the plus sign, there are a number of different services that you might be familiar with that work with calendar. And in Gmail, there are a lot of productivity add-ons, things like document signers, of course, Zoom again, Slack, if you use Slack. Here's an e-signature, DocuSign, Evernote as Note, Dropbox. So these are all merges and applications. DocHub is really popular. These can sync to your Gmail account, and you can pull up the use of them while you're actually in Gmail to make your life a little bit easier and make your productivity flow a bit better. One thing I wanted to show you with calendar is the whole idea of sharing a calendar and making it public. So for core connections, we needed this to stay public so that anyone visiting the website can see our events. When you hover your mouse or your cursor over a calendar on the list, there are triple dots on the right-hand side, and it says options for core connections. So click on the triple dots and go down to settings and sharing. And this will take you to a new window where there are a ton of different organizational settings and things you can set up for the calendar. But where we had to set this to be public is here. access permissions. So there are certain people on our team who have editing rights, who can actually change events and add events to the calendar. But for viewing privileges, we want everybody in the public to be able to see all events. We want you to be able to actually see the details. We can't just show you free or busy on the calendar, because that won't help you know what events are being offered. We need you to see all event details. So maybe you do have a calendar that you're sharing with parents and it just says free or busy because you just want them to know if you're available or not, but not necessarily what you're doing. But for this instance, we want them to be able to see everything on the calendar. You can also get a link, a shareable link for your calendar. You can get a specific embed code for your calendar. These are all notifications you can receive about your calendar. And then here are all of the different integrations. Here's the embed code. Here's the public link. Here's the calendar ID. Sometimes people who are using Apple products and iOS want to see that calendar in their iCal, and you can send that way as well. And then this is removing the calendar, deleting it, which use that carefully. So that's where you get all of those settings from the triple dots, settings and sharing. Same thing with Epic. We had to make it public so everybody could see it, but only specific people can add to the events. Okay. Now, the last note I want to make about calendar is for those of you who are using Google Classroom, because Google Classroom syncs with Google Calendar. There is a calendar inside Google Classroom, inside the platform. Okay, each class has its own calendar. Looks like this in Classroom. But the big thing to note about this calendar, I don't even know where the calendar is. I think is it in settings? I never use it. It used to be at the top. Let's just go to the home page because it's probably there. Oh, there was my calendar. Here's the specific calendar. This is showing all my classes for Google Calendar, for Google Classroom, but I'm just going to pick one. Here are the due dates, okay? But I don't love this at all because one, you have to be in Google Classroom to see it. Two, as the teacher, I cannot add anything to this calendar manually. It's all built based on due dates. So that is kind of annoying to me. I can't double click on the 14th and say, bring this to our Zoom meeting. However, if I go to the actual Google Calendar that is associated with this class, then, so this is Lynn's demo class in Google Calendar, Lynn's demo class. Now you can see let me hide the other things. The black is my class. Now I can click here and I can say, bring show and tell to our class Zoom. And that is Lynn's demo class, and that Zoom is at 1 p.m. And I can save that. Is this going to show up in Google Calendar, or sorry, Google Classroom Calendar? No, it isn't. So it's like a one-way situation, which is why I don't love this calendar. I would much rather share this classroom calendar. I'd rather make that public and share it with my parents through a link. So I would take the link to that calendar and I'd put it in an email, or I'd put it on my class website, and I'd say, hey parents, if you want to stay on top of what we're doing in class, this is what is what. All of the assignments and their due dates will populate out, but also I can add additional stuff to the calendar through actual Google Calendar. So it's a little bit confusing. I understand why there's a calendar built into Classroom, but it's not fully functional. It's only showing you things that have been populated with a due date, versus the actual calendar in Google Calendar, you can continue adding things to as long as you pick the right calendar. And you can say, bring your dog to Zoom day or whatever. And you can make that happen on that front. Okay, so those are some options for sharing specifically through calendar. I love the idea of publishing a class calendar. It's so easy to add to a website or even just share the link with parents. And then parents, just like I did with my daughter's school calendar, they can subscribe, they can add it to their own calendar. So they don't even have to visit a separate link. They can subscribe to their kids' classes calendars if that's something they want to do, and it would be listed under other calendars for them. There are a lot of additional cheat sheets and things to learn about calendar, learning about tasks that I wanted to share with you today. So there's a lot of kind of nitty gritty stuff with calendar and Gmail, but hopefully you got some takeaways to use. If you'd like to give us some feedback or request Act 48 hours, please use bit.ly/IU14 session feedback. And we appreciate you coming today. I'm going to open it up for Q&A. Don't forget to reach out with any questions that you have. And I apologize for the audio issues in the beginning. I hope that does not happen again because it will make me crazy. Reach out to me if you need anything. And there again is the short link for the slides, bit.ly/mailcaliu14. So I'm going to stop the recording. Thanks for